have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was me and Rank. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 135, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Joining me as always, Major Caldwell, Tera Roberts. How you two doing tonight?
Great. Excited for the show.
Doing good.
I am too, because I'm very excited to bake with Tank this evening as we welcome former Tennessee Titan, now NFL analyst / fantasy football analyst / player prop expert, Tank Williams to the show. How you doing there, Tank?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
We are excited. There's some news and notes that are going down here in the NFL. Training camps, they're about a month away. And you know, how happy are you that you're not worrying about training camps anymore? OTAs are kind of taking place. And
training camps were actually like some of the best days, but more so the worst days of your career. I mean, you were always excited to kind of get back into the flow because you have that, you know, that kind of salty taste in your mouth if you were the only team that didn't win the Super Bowl. You grind all off season, and then you get back in the training camp, and it's like that's the jump start to the next season. So all these goals that you set out through the off season, they're finally about to come to fruition. But at that time, we had to grind 2 days. We out there in the heat. Like now, the players got it good. Like they only have one padded practice, and they can't have like maybe a couple padded practices back to back. Like the rules are soft. Like back when I was playing, back in my day, man, we used to get it.
So talk about those training camps, because, I mean, you had a stint there in New England, a little bit in Minnesota, but Tennessee, that heat in Tennessee just hits a little bit different, doesn't it?
Man, everything in Tennessee hits a little bit different. That heat, the food, the music, but I love my time in Tennessee. I was fortunate to get there when we had an amazing nucleus of guys. We had the late Steve McNair, we had Eddie George, Javon Curse, a bunch of household names, Keith Bullock. And so all these guys are just really great players, and it was a fun opportunity to get to Tennessee like a year or two after they made it to the Super Bowl, and they were trying to kind of reclaim that throne. And so my rookie year, I got there and we made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. I thought for sure I was going to end up playing in the Super Bowl, and that was the closest I ever got. So that's why I always try to tell players, I mean, you get in as a rookie, like perfect example, the Cincinnati Bengals last year. I mean, no one expected them to play in the Super Bowl. And so you look at them in that young nucleus that they have, and you say like, oh, they're definitely going to make it back, but it's not guaranteed. So you have to always take advantage of those opportunities once they arise.
I think Dan Marino is basically the poster child for that, right? Made it there right off the start of his career. Arguably one of the best passers ever to do it, and never made it back there. So, I mean, never got that ring, never done that. But we want to talk about a couple other quarterbacks here right off the get-go, because we're hearing a little bit of rumblings here now that OTAs are starting here. We had that little bit of that soft deadline by the Carolina Panthers, who seriously cannot be going into training camp with Sam Darnold under center. So it sounds like they're trying to really work a deal with the Cleveland Browns for Baker Mayfield. Is this something that you think is going to take place? And if so, would Robbie Anderson be going the other direction after everything that Robbie Anderson was basically saying about Baker Mayfield here in texts and emails and all the fun stuff?
Well, I believe that Carolina and any other team that wants Baker Mayfield has all the advantage. They have all the leverage because, you know, Baker Mayfield has the guaranteed money in Cleveland. We all know that. And we know that he doesn't want to be there, and he'll probably make life difficult on the Browns if they retain him through training camp and through the season. So the Browns are incentivized to try to get rid of him as soon as possible, because the last thing you want to do, you already have a lot of drama swirling around the team with Deshaun Watson and everything that's going along with his name right now. You don't want to add to it with Baker Mayfield drama when you're trying to get your team. Like the only thing that can kind of help Cleveland right now is that Deshaun Watson can clear his name and get all that stuff behind him. and they win a bunch of games. If they have all that drama swirling around Deshaun and they don't win games, and you have Baker still on your roster as well, like that's a recipe for disaster. So they need to start, resolving issues that's on that team. And the first one and the easiest one is getting Baker Mayfield to another roster.
So, as a former player, and you hear everything that's going on, you know what's going on in the locker room. How do you block out that noise and just do your job? Like, is it something that you do very easily, or is it something that you're like, okay, this needs to stop right now?
All right.
Like,
So who are we talking about?
On.
Who are we talking about doing our job?
Say you're in that Cleveland Browns locker room right now, and you've got the Baker Mayfield situation kind of overseas. It's not doing you any harm, but it's like, hey, can we move on? Can we kind of get him?
Also, all the other players on the roster.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so when you're talking about all the other players on the roster, I mean, that's the one thing about the NFL is that it is a job. And so even though you're on the team, like these folks, number one, they're worried about what they put on tape between those white lines, because if it's not going to be with the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be with one of the 31 other teams. And so they're always going to put their best foot forward. And that's why you also know that the Cleveland Browns management is going to have a lot of pressure on them, because those guys like Myles Garrett and all the like, they want to go and win a Super Bowl this year, and they know they're not going to be able to do that if they have distractions on that roster. I mean, there are a lot of distractions around what Deshaun Watson is going through right now, but right now there's also a distraction with Baker Mayfield, which can be easily resolved by getting him on another roster. So, yeah, I mean, it can be a distraction, and if it goes on too long, it can affect your team. That's why you deal with these things in offseason. But first and foremost, all the players are going to worry about what they're doing themselves, because ultimately that determines what's going to go in that bank account and support that family.
Yeah.
It's really about handling your own business, right? What's my business is my business, and we'll kind of take care of that. But in San Francisco, they got a little bit of a different situation there. It sounds like Trey Lance is going to be that guy. They want Trey Lance to be that guy. But Jimmy Garoppolo, he's still there. And there's got to be some people in that organization, players or whatnot, that really has a little soft spot for Garoppolo and think he can still get that job done.
And that's the interesting dynamic. Like when you look at the Cleveland Browns situation, like obviously Baker doesn't want to be there, and he won't be there because of the friction that they have in their organization. Because Jimmy G gets along with all the players so well and with management, like I wouldn't be surprised. Like they should move him once he's healthy, and they probably will, to try to get some value for him. But at the same time, if they can't move him, I don't really see the Niners giving him away, because it'd be a situation like, say, for example, Trey Lance just isn't ready. Then you can easily bring Jimmy G back in. I mean, we understand that he isn't the guy that's going to win a Super Bowl for him. That's why they drafted Trey Lance in the first place. Yet at the same time, because of his personality, he can be retained on the roster and just kind of stay on the team for another year. And then if they need him in the pinch, he'll be there, and he won't ruffle any feathers. He won't make any waves. Whereas like Baker Mayfield going to tear the house down if he's still on that Cleveland Browns roster when the season starts. And so that's why also being the general manager, being the owner of a team, and understanding the dynamic, not only of the player, but his relationship with the other guys, and understanding what he wants out of his career, and, the short term and in the long term could be advantageous for you. Because I feel like the Jimmy G situation, even though they will move him if they can get value, they could retain him and make that situation work, whereas Baker Mayfield, they cannot.
Well, let's talk value. You mentioned value. Let's get into some player props here right now. And I want to talk about one of my favorite ones right now. You tell me if I'm out to lunch here or not, but the old 15-1 odds for Matthew Stafford winning this year's MVP. I mean, there are some other quarterbacks who are better. They're more favored to this. But 15-1, that feels like good value to me for Matthew Stafford coming off a Super Bowl already.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely on track, because I like to look at it from this perspective. From a macro perspective, like, look, Russell Wilson is in Denver right now. So now you have Drew Lock or whoever they're going to start, Geno Smith, that quarterback in Seattle. So automatically, without getting too deep into them, I have them out of the mix. And so then you go to San Francisco, whether it's going to be Trey Lance, trying to take over for the offense. What he showed us last year in his couple of games starting, I didn't really feel like he was going to be the guy. And then you coming in your first year starting. I mean, only a few guys in the NFL be able to kind of jump in, their first year starting, and then take the team on their back and then win a lot of games, like a Patrick Mahomes and all those types. I don't think Trey Lance is that guy, even though they have a really good defense. They have some nice offensive weapons around them. They can lean heavy on the run game. If they have Deebo back in the fold with Warren Jennings and Brandon Ayuk and all these other guys, George Kittle, like they have some weapons out there, but can Trey Lance get it done? I'm not sure yet. When you look at the Arizona Cardinals, a really talented team. Yet at the same time, they seem to have more headlines in the offseason than they do in the regular season, the postseason, whether it's people talking about contracts. You have like some of the captains on the team, offensive tackle, kind of calling out Kyler Murray and saying that he needs to be more of a leader. He needs to step up. And when you have that dynamic going on in the locker room, that really doesn't show the cohesiveness that you need in order to kind of deal with adversity throughout the season and win a Super Bowl. So when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, Matthew Stafford at 15-1 makes a lot of sense. Like, obviously there's some pieces that have gone, but I mean, you still have Cooper Kupp, you sign him, you have Van Jefferson coming back, you bring over Allen Robinson from Chicago. And so I like that nucleus at the wide receiver standpoint. Running back is looking really good. And so, you may have to, replace some guys on the offensive line, but I feel like enough pieces are there, especially when you bring Aaron Donald back, that you got a nice shot at repeating.
I guess the one that I want to talk about is Austin Ekeler. I feel like people are kind of on the edge of whether he can repeat that performance. Was it an anomaly? Is he going to have that level of rushing production and touchdowns again on the ground? So what about the over-under on rushing yards for Austin Ekeler at 725 and a half?
See, honestly, first off, I'm going to say over. But at the same time, it's always interesting when you deal with the Los Angeles Chargers, just because they do like to rotate a lot of backs in. And Justin Jackson, showed well when he was able to kind of come in for Ekeler when he was like banged up and stuff like that. And so from that perspective, you always worry about somebody coming in and taking carries. But Austin Ekeler is that dude, and he's a talented guy. Actually, I had him on my fantasy roster last year, and he balled out for me. And I feel like when you have Justin Herbert and what those guys can do on the outside with Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams, and those guys are really explosive talents that you have on the edge. And so you have to focus on those guys on the outside, which opens up lanes for Ekeler. And then also what Herbert can do with his legs when he wants to. That just makes it so easy for that guy to get yardage in the run and pass game. But we're talking specifically about rush yards, and I feel like they're going to have some gaping holes, and they play in a really good division where you can take advantage at times of some of those defenses in the AFC West in the run game, even though, unfortunately, he doesn't get to play against his defense because, boy, those guys got ran through on the regular last year.
They did. I love that. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and what I want to talk about, when you first look at it, it seems like it's an easy no-brainer, but there's so much talent on this team, it might kind of take away from this guy a bit. Let's go Joe Mixon. Over under 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that was a good note. I think he had 13 last year. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he had 13 last year. And, that's a team that we talked about a little bit to start the show, where you have a talented nucleus, man, that they got to get the ball in a lot of hands, where you're talking about Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That's interesting. I actually like Hayden Hurst on that roster right now, too. Interesting to see what he's going to do in the mix. But speaking specifically about Joe Mixon, they have an improved offensive line. Yep. I think that's the most important thing, and that's why I would probably go over, because he's one of those backs that he's going to get usage in the run and the pass game, and you really don't have a lot of guys that get that kind of usage one and also get the type of volume that Joe Mixon was getting. Like, obviously we had to deal with Piron and spells, but it really wasn't that significant. I can't rattle off the percentages off the top of my head, but I know that Mixon was that guy for the most part. And so as long as he's going to get volume, he should be A-okay, because when teams are trying to game plan against the Cincinnati Bengals, they're worried about Jamar Chase. They're worried about T. Higgins. They understand that they need to stop the run, but you can't just stack the box and try to take away Joe Mixon, or those guys going to eat you up on our side. So you're going to have two guys dedicated to Jamar off top. And T. Higgins ain't no slouch, which means that Joe Mixon's going to have advantageous boxes in the run game, which means that Joe Mixon's going to get in that zone early and often.
I'm a big Joe Mixon guy here. I think I got him as my RB3 going into the season, just behind Taylor and Christian McCaffrey, because of that improvement on that offensive line. Don't forget Tyler Boyd. He can still ball a little bit there too. So you got three, probably the best trio of wide receivers, an improved offensive line. Joe Burrow got sacked 51 times last year. That's not going to happen this year. I promise you that. Now, that's a team with a lot of talent. I want to talk about a team with very little talent right now, and that's the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
And this, for me, is an absolute smash on the over. Brandin Cooks. Let's give the guy a little bit of love. 950.5 receiving yards. You have to hit that over.
Do you?
1,037 is what he had last year. He's in line
No,
for
actually, you have to. Yeah, you honestly you have to. And it's interesting. Like Brandin Cooks. So my my strategy in the auction draft last year was just basically trying to get value at wide receiver. And so Jamar Chase came into the season where people were worried about the drop. So I got him for cheap. I got Brandin Cooks for cheap. I got Marquise Brown for cheap. And I mean, I just got lucky. So all the guys that I got for cheap at wide receiver ended up balling out last year. And so that's why I can speak to Brandin Cooks. And I can say that I would go over. I honestly like Davis Mills attended Stanford. I'm a Stanford guy, and so I watched him in college.
Oh, that's
I knew he
why.
was a
I
solid.
get
I
it.
knew,
I
but
get
no,
it.
I'm not going to go the Homer route though because I knew he was a solid player. But I'll honestly say that I didn't expect him to play as well as he did last year. And I think one game that you can point to is when you have the Los Angeles Chargers coming into your stadium, and if the Chargers win that game, more than likely they win the playoffs. That's how important that game was for them. Yet at the same time, Davis Mills was able to kind of lead that offense to a tough win against a really good football team. And then not just speaking about that one game in specific, but Brandin Cooks had himself some games in that offense. And I feel like they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit more effectively this year. Davis Mills is going to be one more year inside that offense. And so I'm looking for him I'm not saying he's going to ball out and, try to put up all these crazy stats, but Brandin Cooks is going to be, the focus of his attention on the outside. And I think he's going to get a ton of targets, which is going to bode well for him in the fantasy game for sure.
I think you guys sleeping on those two young receivers they got over there. They got Mitchie and they got what's the kid from last year?
Well, Mechie got to come off the knee injury though.
It's true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think that the Texans. I mean, we can look at this here. They don't have the talent yet, but it's coming. You talk about Nico Collins. You talk about John Mechie. He's on the way. He's probably January. Take 9 months there. That's September. He's probably looking about September, October, where he's back to full strength after that ACL. Damian Pierce there out of Florida. The guy runs hard like a little ball of hate. So there's some talent coming there now. Tara.
So we've got the over here multiple times. I want to see if I can get Tank to take the under here. AJ Brown, over under 82.5 receptions. The Eagles were dead last in pass attempts last year. And obviously they're really trying to invest in the pass game. They want Jalen Hurts to improve, succeed. They're putting the talent around him. Do we think that it's going to increase enough for AJ to be able to hit the over on that?
I would probably go under. I mean, that's what my gut tells me. And the way I look at it is that the Philadelphia Eagles, like the reason they went out and got AJ Brown is because they finally found their identity last year. I mean, Eagles fans were in the stands like saying, why in the hell won't you run the ball? Like, just run the damn ball. And once they started running the ball, what happened? They started winning games. They actually made it to the playoffs, and nobody expected the Eagles to make it to the playoffs last year. So I say all that to say this. Like, they really want to be another version of the Tennessee Titans. Like, they want to be run heavy. And then it's not about the quantity of balls they throw. It's about the quality of balls. And if you can maybe throw the ball to A.J. Brown like 5 times a game, but he has like 5 for 124 and 2 tubs, like you'll take that. You know what I'm saying? It's because they have Devontae Smith. They have Dallas Goedert. They have A.J. Brown. Like they have a lot of talent to throw the ball to. I'm not sure he's going to be a volume hog like he was in Tennessee. Therefore, that's why I'm going under. But I will say that I look for those Eagles wide receivers like Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert to be able to have some, I expect them to perform better in fantasy than most people would expect because of the threat of Jalen Hurts running the ball, because they should be able to run the ball effectively, which should open up the pass game for those guys to flourish.
Man, you're like killing it right now. I'm trying to stump you. Let me see.
No, actually, I like this because, like, usually, like I said, I've been on daddy duty, and so I really haven't started my fantasy due diligence this yet. And so basically, this is it. No, basically, this is it. I mean, no, I'm not bragging, but like, this is what I enjoy doing. Like, basically, you just kind of talk about teams, and it's like you kind of think back to what they did last year, think about some of the changes they made this year, and then you just try to project how you feel they're going to do this coming year. That's all prop bets are. That's all fantasy forecasting is. I mean, nobody knows anything. I mean, I'm talking like I know what's going to happen. Is that going to happen? I have no clue, but you have to believe your thesis. And then if it comes to fruition, cool. If not, then, hey, I did my due diligence. This is what I thought. It didn't work out. Then, oh, well, you move on to the next one.
So let's move on to this next one. I got my guy. He had 77 receptions last year. In the offseason, got paid let's see if this contract is going to match production. Give me over under Christian Kirk 72.5 receptions. And they got the golden boy at quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, they got a new coach, new system.
That's a lot of unknowns. I mean, they paid him a lot of money too.
Yes.
But there's a lot of uncertainty that you have to deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, the one thing that you can probably guarantee is that they're going to be playing from behind, so he should get a lot of targets.
Hey, garbage time still count.
Yeah. I mean, so honestly, it's nasty, but I'd probably go over. I'd
I'm
probably
with
go
you.
over just thinking about the game flow. I mean, you know, one, I mean, you have Marvin Jones, you have all these other guys, but you don't go out and sign a guy like Christian Kirk to all that money, and he's not going to be your number one dude that you're going to try to have him be the focal point of your passing game, man. Honestly, like, they're going to try to run the ball effectively to try to take some of that heat off Trevor Lawrence, but the teams that they have to play in the AFC aren't going to allow them to kind of affect the game that way. So Trevor Lawrence is going to have to throw the ball, and so he's going to have to throw to Christian Kirk. Therefore, he's going to get those targets. He's going to get those balls. He's going to get those catches. So that's a lot of things. That's a lot of times you have to think about too. That's like almost like the Brandin Cooks thing, where when you say it out loud, it sounds nasty. But when you think about the projected game flow, the kind of situations that more than likely that team's going to be in, you work through it that way, and it's like, it looks kind of nasty, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm high on Christian Kirk. I mean, he was an understudy to two of the GOATs in Arizona, you know, with Nuke and AJ. So I'm thinking he's coming over, and he's a baller, he's a gamer. And, you know, if coach can make Carson Wentz, you know, look like he was an MVP candidate, like, and I'm pretty sure you could do something with Trevor Lawrence. I'm assuming.
Yeah, touche.
So we got two more little things of business here before we conclude the ViperCast here, before we move into Behind the Grind. One is under the radar picks. I said we all have our guys. I mean, I've got my Jacoby Myers, Brandin Cooks, Russell Gage. These are my under the radar type players that I absolutely love. Now, Tank, I have to ask you, who are those guys that you absolutely love that you think are going to overperform heading into the season? Have you given that any thought yet, or?
Man, actually, I really didn't think about it until maybe I brought it up, right? Because we were talking about the over-unders, and I was saying we should do some under-the-radar guys. And so I just kind of scrolled through some rosters and then jotted down some names that look interesting to me. So I'm going to just shout out some, and then we can just latch on to some of the ones y'all want to talk about. So Hayden Hurst was one with Cincinnati, James Washington in Dallas, DJ Chark in Detroit, Amon St. Brown, even though he blew up, I think people may be scared to double back on him in Detroit, but I think he should be okay. Alan Lazard, Green Bay, Marlon Mack in Houston, Mo Ali Cox in Indianapolis, Van Jefferson with the Rams. I mean, I think people may kind of downgrade Tyreek because of Tua, but I actually like that situation, him and Waddle. Jameis Winston in New Orleans. I think the Giants' offense is interesting for certain reasons. The Jets' offense is interesting. Eagles' offense is interesting. Russell Gage, Robert Woods, and Treylon Burks. So who y'all want to talk about?
I want to go with Shark because I'm 50. I was so high on him the year when he got hurt. And now in this new situation, people give Goff a hard time, but I live in LA and I've seen Goff play plenty of time. He's okay. He's not like people make him out like he can't throw the ball like 5 yards. I think I don't think
Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods had some baller seasons with him too.
There you go. So give me your take on Shark because I'm high on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think perfect example is look at what Amon-Ra St. Brown did last year for the Detroit Lions. So we know that a guy can get off in that offense, right? Yep. We know that they're going to have DeAndre Swift at running back who can be effective in the run game and in the pass game. He's going to be one more year immersed in that offense, so he should be effective, and teams should have to focus on him. And so now you have a guy in DJ Chark who can run on the outside. He can ball. He already showed that he can ball in Jacksonville. You can ball in Jacksonville. You can ball anywhere.
Exactly.
And so now he's coming off a season being hurt, where people are going to be looking at him like, oh, man, like this dude was hurt last year. They may try to sleep on DJ a little bit. And if you try to sleep on that cat and give him one-on-one coverage outside, he's going to give you the business. So that's why I like DJ Chark in that situation. Like, Jared Goff may not be one of the top 5, top 10 quarterbacks in the league, but if you give him DJ Chark on the outside against a bum on a regular, he's going to eat you up.
Come on.
That Detroit Lions offense, that's no joke, man. When Jameson Williams comes back there with Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson, I mean, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, who, by the way, Jamal Williams is just my favorite running back in the entire National Football League. I love when he starts talking to Little Mermaid and Frozen and all these kids' cartoons that you see in his post-game press conferences.
And you got Hawkinson in the middle, too.
You got that. Yeah. They got squad, man.
That offense is going to be low-key good this year. I think. I don't think we're giving them enough credit right now ahead of the start of the season here. Now, the one other player that you mentioned there that I want to talk about a little bit is Robert Woods, coming off that ACL injury. He's probably not going to be 100% until maybe a couple, 3-4 weeks into this season. How do you see, with your finger on the pulse there in Tennessee there kind of, how do you see this offense going? They're always going to be a run-heavy type team, but with Treylon Burks, they can move him around in all kinds of formations. Robert Woods, not only is Robert Woods more than willing to get in on the blocking game, but he can run the ball a little bit too, those jet sweeps. So this offense can look all kinds of – it's like a kickback to old school, like an old wing T almost that he could run.
Yeah, I mean, if Derrick Henry comes back healthy and that offensive line has their stuff together so they can run the ball effectively, then it almost doesn't matter who they have on the outside. As long as you're like an above average, competent wide receiver who can run really good routes and get open and catch the ball, you should be able to have a decent year in Tennessee. And Robert Woods, if he comes back off that knee, he got hurt early in the season. So I would feel like he has enough time to come back and be 100%. And so if he comes back and he's the Robert Woods that we saw with the LA Rams, and then you have a nice young Treylon Burks on the outside, on the opposite side of you, I feel like he can be more than effective. And so that's another situation where you see it's an offense that's run heavy, and it's a guy coming off an ACL injury. So there's going to probably be a lot of people that sleep on him. So whether you picking him late in the fantasy draft or you scooping him up on the auction, you can probably get him for cheaper than you can get some of these other guys. So he'll be a guy that you can get for cheap. But I feel that he has a lot of upside because of the one-on-one situations he's going to have on the outside. A lot of teams are going to probably play a lot of man coverage to stop Derrick Henry, giving him one-on-one matchups on the outside and explosive plays over the top or over the middle where you can catch the ball and run, which is his strong suit. That's what he did with the Rams.
I mean, it was just this time last year. Oh, sorry, Tara. I was going to say, it was just this time last year where we were actually contemplating Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp for our fantasy rosters. I mean, that's how good Robert Woods was for those who don't remember.
Robert, LA native too. Shout out to Robert Woods, man.
And I'll maybe wrap us up here with one more sleeper. I'll go with the Homer sleeper as our resident Packers fan. Alan Lazard. I liked you saying that one because I know a lot of people are kind of on the fence whether it's going to be Alan Lazard, whether it's going to be Christian Watson that steps up. Obviously, Aaron Jones can pick up a lot of that receiving stats too. But Alan Lazard, I feel like, is a really, really, really sneaky, especially when you consider his ADP right now. And the fact that he doesn't really need a whole bunch of receptions to pay off. He is really loved by Aaron Rodgers in the red zone. 8 touchdowns last year on a very low amount of targets, kind of really high red zone efficiency. So Alan Lazard is definitely one of those ones that I think is someone who could really pay off our fantasy rosters.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I mean, a lot of people are going to focus on their draft pick this year, the rookie wide receiver. But I mean, Alan Lazard, he showed that he had the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. And man, I got to apologize. I mean, for the next segment, I'm going to close these blinds and turn on my lights. I didn't think this would be that bad. I didn't want to I didn't want to interrupt the podcast, but hey, y'all. Can you come close these blinds for me, please?
I was just trying something new. I was like,
I was just trying to fight through it, but I was like, man, it's just
because it's going perfectly across your eyes. It looked like perfect, like movie lighting. I like it.
There we go. Here I am.
There he is. There he is.
All right, now back to Alan Lazard. I mean, when I look at the chemistry that he had with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the relationship and the way he moves and stuff too. It kind of reminds me of Jordy Nelson. It seems like they just have that synergy where Aaron Rodgers knows where he's going to be. And even though Jordy was talented, Jordy was fast, he ran really good routes. I mean, I think, Alan Lazard is a little bit underrated in that aspect too, where he's a little bit faster than most people think. He runs really good routes. He catches the ball well. And most importantly, he has the trust of Aaron Rodgers. So even though they're going to add some different pieces to the mix, whether you have the young wide receiver, you still have Randall Cobb there, you add Sammy Watkins to the mix and all that. But Alan Lazard is going to be that guy. And if you're Aaron Rodgers' number one guy, you're going to be a dude in fantasy and when it comes to like putting up prop bets.
Well, before we move away from fantasy, before we go behind the grind, the last piece of business we got to take care of is hand out a invitation to the SCOTFISH Bowl number 12 here. And we've got ourselves a little bit of the 100-yard dash, but the only 100-yard dash you'll ever see me do, because quite frankly, I don't run the way I once did, nor did I ever run well to begin with. So we're going to slap this up here on the screen once I get rid of our lovely, whatchamacallit here. There we go. There, now we're all good. That looks all good. So we're down to 3 participants here for that SCOTFISH Bowl. Tank, do you know the SCOTFISH Bowl? Are you in the SCOTFISH Bowl?
I'm actually not in it, but I'm aware of it.
All right,
We gotta
we'll
get
make some
him in
calls
there.
there. We'll get you in there for sure.
Yeah.
So here we go. We got Broody 54, Yamoto Forever, and Wizard of Roto. And we're going to kick that off, keep everything kind of good.
Wizard of Roto.
You know
I'm
what?
going with that one.
Well, I'm going to shuffle this 25 because that seems like a good number to have for today's show. So let's bring that up,
like
shuffle
that.
it 25 times. Move it on. No one gets an advantage. Let's kick this off here. Let's go with about fast speed because this thing could drag out a little bit here when we watch these things. So we're going to kick this off, and here we go. So the winner of this event, they're going to get themselves an invite to the SCOTFISH Bowl here, and we're handing it out. We got Roto, we got Broody, and we got Forever down in the bottom. And they are all with Broody with the early lead here. He's up to 20.
And whoever's in the lead, they never win.
No,
Chance.
it's usually like a hamstring or something about the 10-yard line or something. They just
Yo,
kinda pull
that
up.
cat in the middle took out like Usain Bolt.
Right.
Yeah. See, here's the secret. I think Wizard's going to pull this
Looking
off.
like
He's gonna be
Tyreek.
just biding his time there at the top of the screen.
I don't know, man. Look like
No,
a boy
he's
in the
got
middle
it.
gonna win. Take the tape.
Easy. Oh, that's an easy win.
That's
Oh,
done.
that was a no-doubter on that one. So congratulations, Broody54. We'll make sure we get into contact here about your invite to the SCOTFISH Bowl, and we'll kind of move on from there. So with that all being said, this has been the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. For Tera, for Major, for Tank, I'm Matt Donnelly, and once I figure out how to get everything off the screen and move on to the next part of the show, we'll do that. And hey, make sure to stay tuned. Tune in for the next show here too, because we got Behind the Grind. We're going to get a little bit of a closer look here on Tank Williams, his career through high school, through the pros, and into this whole fantasy world that he is now part of here. So you're not going to miss that. And we'll see you next time.